So believe it or not, it was actually 7 months ago that DICE announced that Hardcore would be coming to Battlefield 5, which was about the same time as the time to kill change. The problem is though, is that DICE rolled back the TTK change and they never said anything about Hardcore again. So what happened? Well guys, this is BillyEatWorld again, and let's find out. Alright, so just before we get into this video, I just want to make the point that there is this feeling that somehow DICE doesn't communicate well enough with the community. And normally I jump in and defend the community managers on this one because believe it or not, they do give us more information about Battlefield 5 than they ever had for any other game in the franchise. The problem is though, is that times have changed. We live in a social media world now, and if you're a studio and you don't tell your fans every time you take a sip of your coffee, then they will respond. And that's the problem I think we have with Battlefield 5. Now that we are getting more information than ever before, the fans expect it all, and most importantly, they expect it right now. Now, the problem with that is that sometimes that can get studios into hot water, which is exactly what happened with the announcement of Hardcore 7 months ago. You see, at the time of the TTK change, Hardcore fans were disappointed, and so DICE desperately wanted to give them something to hang on to by announcing that a Hardcore mode was on its way. And look, to some extent that worked for me, and I know for a lot of other people. The problem is that nothing has been said about it ever since then, and we certainly don't have a Hardcore mode in-game yet. And so the other day, I got sick of waiting. I actually asked Adam Freeman, EA's UK community manager for Battlefield 5, and he confirmed that, unfortunately, yes, the idea of a dedicated Hardcore mode has officially been scrapped. So obviously that's pretty disappointing, but something that I've been thinking about for a while now is that maybe private games, when they finally get added, will be able to fill the gap. And so I asked Adam about that as well, and I just want to quote him directly here because I think what he said really confirms what I'd actually already expected. He said, quote, "Since then I think we've signalled that ideally a robust RSP will equip people with the tools to forge their own version of Hardcore mode. And ideally, this lets the community both build and use it themselves at the same time as telling us what it should be." Now, just to unpack that a little, I think not only does that confirm to us that DICE still have us hardcore players in mind, they're also working on the tools that we would need. And we'll get into that in just a bit, because I think it's now as a community we need to weigh in and tell DICE what those tools should be before they start putting them into private games. Not just that though, but I think the really interesting part about that quote is that it shows that DICE are planning to use private games as a bit of a test bed to see what players want. Which I think is really smart, because I think one of the problems with Hardcore in previous Battlefield games is that it wasn't as good as it could be, because I just don't think they've ever had the resources and the time to balance it properly in-house. So I guess the question is, what do we as hardcore players actually want to see in private games for us to make our own hardcore mode possible? And well, obviously we're going to need some kind of damage scaling, but most importantly, I think I'd like to see the ability to scale different weapon types on an individual basis. The other thing I think we'd need is the ability to ban specific weapons and gadgets if they do end up being too overpowered, which I actually think has already been confirmed. But not just that, I'd also like to see the ability to faction lock weapons, because I know a lot of hardcore shooter fans are also milsim fans, and you know that those guys are going to be looking for authenticity. Now, the other thing I'd like to see is the ability to scale weapon recoil and suppression to be more realistic, even if it is just a simple button to toggle realistic weapon handling on or off. And not just that, and this is something that's been tried in Insurgency Sandstorm recently, I'd like the ability to slow down player movement and animation speeds so that it doesn't feel like you're a super soldier anymore. Most importantly though, I really think for any hardcore mode to work, we need the ability to turn off as many HUD elements as possible, but still leave on the ones that are important to the core gameplay. And of course, we absolutely need to be able to remove any kind of passive spotting. I think we need to be able to turn off the death cam, and I'd actually even limit the ability for players to spawn on squad mates. But anyway, guys, there you go. Maybe this isn't the news that you've been looking for, but at least we've got a straight answer now, right? And obviously there's a lot to talk about here, so if you've got any ideas for anything that we've mentioned in this video, please leave them down below, because believe it or not, dice devs do actually watch these kinds of videos. As always though, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and please feel free to check out the links in the description if you want to see any more of these videos. And also don't forget you can find my Twitter and Discord links down there as well if you want to keep in touch. And as always, until next time, see you later and have a good one.